In a world where insanity reigns supreme and safety pin manufacturers are running out of metal for the diapers of the leftists, it's comforting to know an ancient, fat, long-haired, bearded reprobate has your mind in mind. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, broadcasting behind enemy lines in occupied California, and despite every attempt by the SHR Media Network to revoke his shameless contract, we return to the bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk Bobcat Saloon.
I have come here to chew bubblegum and kick ass, and I'm all out of bubblegum.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, welcome to the bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk Bobcat Saloon radio show, live and direct on the SHR Media Network, where I am broadcasting behind enemy lines in occupied California, count them, 2 miles east of the Bill Mill, the belly of the beast, the locus of evil on the entire left coast, the Capitol building in Sacramento, California, where late at night you can hear the death of common sense issuing from that fetid building, the Capitol building at 10th and L Street, downtown. You can also smell late at night the noxious evil vapors of sulfur and brimstone. But wait, there's more. You got a belly up to the bar, we've kept your seat, and it's great to see you back. Tonight it's Thursday, June 20th. The year of our Lord 2019 already. I got to tell you that Dink is going to be your bartender tonight. He pours with the best of them. And the lava lamp is in fact lighted to my left, your right, indicating that you can listen and chat at shrmedia.com. Lots of people in the chat room already. AOC is in the chat room. Thank you, AOC. 2 viewers, Iggy Mom, Jack Alexander, and more. Always more. And if you want to watch the show, you can watch on Big Sarge Media, the Big Sarge Media Facebook page, the SHR Media Facebook page, and the SHR Media YouTube channel. All free, no paywall, nothing like that. I got to tell you this, though. Whoa, the music is running out already. Hey, we don't water our drinks just like we don't water our conversation. Well, politics, religion, crime, culture, economics, race, sex, science, law. We talk about it all right here at the Saloon. Nothing is sacred. The speech is free, but the booze is not. All we ask is that you flush the toilet, jiggle the damn handle so we don't waste water. It's California with a K. It's California, after all. And please, don't forget to tip your waitress. The show is going to go roughly like this. I have a new guest who's going to be in the Saloon very shortly. His name is Earl Jackson. And most of or many of my current guests, I've encountered a lot of people by way of social media on the internet. And Earl Jackson is no stranger to the internet. We'll introduce him. He's going to be here in the first hour. The second hour, this is why you listen to me. I have a ton of happy stories. At least, 2 or 3 of which have just been issued today. One was a court ruling. The other one, I've got at least 5, 6, 7 stories about that. In the second hour for Thursday, I'm going to open up the phone line again. I kind of like doing that. So if you want to weigh in on anything that I happen to be talking about, 209-284-3210. 209-284-3210. I will put that in the chat room. And I know, I'm on YouTube. I'm on 2 versions of Facebook on video. please, I'm beseeching you, if you want to be in the chat room, there's only one place that I monitor, and that's the chat room at shrmedia.com. shrmedia.com. For those of you who just tuned in, shrmedia.com. For those of you who happen to be in Ecuador, shrmedia.com. Did you know the difference between the two? Thank you very much. That means you're objectively literate. You're paying attention, even though it is late at night, and I really appreciate that. It's 5 after the hour of 8 p.m. here on the left coast. On the right coast, it's 11:05. And in, where is it? El Salvador, Venezuela? I can't remember. Honduras? It's some kind of a strange time, and I'm not going to go there right now. However, waiting in the wings in the first hour is Earl Jackson. And okay, I tried this earlier today. Let's make sure that it works. Because you know BZ and technology. I swear I tried it earlier with Earl, and it worked. Well,
Hello?
At least I hope it worked. Earl Jackson, is that you, sir?
It is I.
It is you. Thank you. I was just warning everybody. Well, I spoke to you earlier today, and we conducted a test call of Facebook because I can't trust technology anymore, and everyone knows that if there's anyone who is a challenge to technology, it would be myself, BZ. So thank you for answering the phone. Thank you, God, for letting technology work. Thank you, God, for letting Earl and me be able to conduct a conversation tonight.
Absolutely.
I greatly appreciate it. Tonight, folks, we have the very distinct pleasure of having someone new into the saloon. He's a veteran. He's a patriot. He's an NRA supporter. He's a Texan, a great American, and apparently, and I like this part too, apparently a supporter of Doctor Strange because I can see it on his T-shirt. And so anybody that's all of those things wrapped into one individual has to come on my show. So, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, I'd like to welcome Earl Big E Jackson to the Berserk Bobcat Saloon. And welcome, sir.
Well, thank you very much. It is a pleasure to be here with you this evening.
First, Earl Jackson, I always want to make sure that I let everybody weigh in on this. Earl Jackson, tell us where you can be found on social media and also points on the internet.
Well, I have my own show that I do. It's weekly. It's called The Liberty Cast, and you can find it on any of the popular podcast platforms. I'm on Spreaker with you, and iTunes, Spotify, SoundCloud, all of them. And my blog that accompanies it is The Liberty Cast also, and all of my social media platforms are at The Liberty Cast. So if you search for that, you'll find me.
I'm looking at you on Facebook under Earl Jackson. That should come as no surprise. You've got Earl Jackson also for Big E and Earl Jackson, a separate Facebook account for yourself. And what apparently Earl was too kind to mention is that his very specific, now I find this interesting. He also has a point on the internet called thelibertycast.net. You need to go there, thelibertycast.net. And for two very significant reasons. Number one is Earl writes there. Earl writes stories, his newest being Hypocrite University. When you go to thelibertycast.net, I repeat it again, thelibertycast.net, at the very top you'll see home, our story, and then podcasts. Now, if you want to find out what Earl sounds like, and if you want to listen to his podcasts, go to, again, thelibertycast.net. Go to the top where it says podcasts, and you can hear all of his shows. A highly recommended show. I just started listening to him myself, and as I admitted earlier, I'm finding more and more really unique and interesting people on social media that I want to make sure that I invite to the show. And Earl Jackson, you are definitely one of them. You write well.
Well, I am very glad to hear that. Thank you.
You write well. Your show is spot on. Folks, I highly recommend Earl, which is, again, one of the reasons that I wanted to make sure that he was here tonight. Can you give us sort of an overview, if you can, Earl Jackson, what your show, The Liberty Cast, is about?
Well, I started the show. It's actually coming up on a year here in probably a month or so, and I started it primarily as a way to defend the Second Amendment. But as the political climate has changed and as things are just spinning out of control, I find myself talking about more and more things in the political realm outside of the Second Amendment. But I always try to bring it back to, at least during one of the segments, I always try to mention something about 2A, because that is something that I am very passionate about, and something that I want to make sure that I address, as well as some of the other things that are going on.
Okay, if people, I again say, if you want to listen to his podcasts, go to thelibertycast.net. But if people want to listen to you live, what day and what time can they hear you?
I don't do it live.
Okay.
I record it and then I post it. I haven't progressed to that point yet. Hopefully here in the next, by the end of the year, I hope to be able to do a live show.
Okay.
But right now it's recorded and posted, and it's usually posted by Sunday afternoon, Sunday evening.
Okay. All righty. Great. My mistake. My error.
No worries.
You indicate that you emphasize the Second Amendment, and then because of all the kerfuffle and the craziness that's going on these days, you've expanded yourself. Let's go back a little bit if we can. Earl Jackson, can you tell us a little bit about yourself, where you were raised, your education? Tell us a little bit about Earl Jackson, if you will.
Well, I grew up in Massachusetts, and my parents are both highly educated individuals. My dad is a graduate of Harvard Law School. My mother graduated from Simmons College with a master's in library science. And so education was always something that was emphasized as I was growing up. And me being a rebellious kid didn't always listen.
Imagine that.
And so imagine. And I ended up going into the military after high school and serving 4 years in the United States Air Force. I aimed very high. And I like to think that I would have come to the conservative side without being raised by my parents, because I paid attention to what was going on in the late 70s, early 80s, and could see the disparity in the way things were happening in that time frame. And so as I grew up and got out of the military and pursued a career in law enforcement, just the conservative ideals were even more ingrained into me. And also once I became a law enforcement officer, obviously, shooting and the Second Amendment became something that was very important to me, and I love to do it, and I love to defend our right to defend ourselves, which is basically what it boils down to. It's a right for you and me to protect ourselves against any threat, whether that's a mugger, a home invader, or a tyrannical government.
Earl Jackson, when you were in the Air Force, did you find yourself stationed a bunch of different places, or primarily one spot in the Air Force?
I ended up stationed at Andrews Air Force Base, but I was in the Air Force during the first Gulf War.
Okay.
And so during Desert Shield and Desert Storm, my unit deployed to England. And I was in a medical wing, so we ended up setting up a field hospital at RAF Bicester over in England.
Okay. The other thing that I didn't know about you, is that you were in law enforcement. I retired after 41 years in law enforcement. Now, I didn't do any military service. I'm the first one to admit that. My service to my country was 41 years in law enforcement. I worked for the FBI and the U.S. Marshal, and then for two California sheriff's departments.
U.S. Marshals, that's impressive.
Yeah, I worked for the feds for a while until I regained a bit of my sanity, and then I decided to come over and work for a couple of local law enforcement agencies, because the federal law enforcement service and the way the feds do their job is way different than the locals do. However, having said that, what kind of law enforcement did you find yourself in, Earl Jackson?
I actually started off in the projects, working in the housing authority. I didn't work for the housing authority per se, but I worked in the inner city, and I actually worked with Sackhead Sean for a little while as well. And
get out of town! Did you really? Back east?
Yeah, he was my partner for a while.
Oh. Boy.
You didn't know that?
No, I did not. He hasn't said a word to me about this. Okay, wow. He doesn't read my social media, and I mentioned you in passing earlier this week. He's got a ton of stuff on his plate. Wow.
Yes,
okay, Earl Jackson, I did not know that. I didn't know that. Okay.
Wow. I'm actually surprised that he hasn't mentioned that, but yeah.
Wow.
That's how Sean and I met.
Okay. All right. Dang. I am surprised that you're not over here on SHR. Well, I'll tell you what. I'll make this offer to you right now. If you ever decide that you want to schedule shows, or if you decide that you want another place to put a podcast at a given time, get in touch with me or Sean, and we'll make that happen. Because after hearing your show and now finding out the linkage here, we got to do you a solid, sir. That's it. Bottom line, we got to do you a solid.
Well, I appreciate that. But my show actually does. It is posted on SHR's Spreaker. I guess you didn't know that either, huh?
No. Jeez. Okay. All right. A.
He's not very communicative, is he?
A. He's mischievous. B. I feel like a complete dolt not knowing this. Parenthesis. Hey, thanks, Sean. End of parenthesis. But
we'll have to chide him about that later.
Yeah. Earl Jackson, have no doubt whatsoever that I will mention this to Sackhead Sean. Oh, you can take that to the bank, sir.
Nice.
I'm gobsmacked. I'm floored. I'm happy as hell. Dude, I got to have you more on the show then. I did not know that. Listen, had I known that, I would have had you on the show a year ago. 2 years ago, because if there's nothing that I believe in is not cross promotion. I am a massive believer in cross promotion. So, dang. Okay. All right. Thanks, Earl Jackson. I'm sorry. I should have known that. Okay. Like I said, Sean and me, we're going to talk just a little bit. Okay, after you did some work with that miscreant named Sean Lewis in the housing projects, now is that where you primarily did all your law enforcement time back east?
No, I ended up leaving there. I worked for the state for a little while. I went to the State Police Academy. I didn't go to the same one that the troopers go to. Okay. It was in the same facility, but it was an abbreviated program.
Okay.
But it was the same instructors and everything like that. And I worked for a state agency for about 3 years, and I left there because the chief of that agency was a political appointee. He had no law enforcement background, and he and some of the other officers on that department used to butt heads like there was no tomorrow. And finally, one day, I had had enough a friend of mine I spoke to on the phone said that he was making a lot of money in tech. And I said, I need to do that. And a few months later, I was in computer school. And a few months after that, I said goodbye to my law enforcement career.
Okay, so you worked in Massachusetts in law enforcement and also in the housing police department with Sackhead Sean. Yeah.
Yeah.
Again, thanks, Sean. Thanks for letting me know all about Earl. Thanks, sir. After you did that, now you went into tech, and were you still working back east when you got into the tech world?
Yes, I got into tech in actually in 2000, and my wife and I got married, and we moved to Texas in 2006.
Ah, okay. Dare I ask, or can you say what firm you work for, or would you rather not? I can understand both.
I'd rather not. I'd rather not bring them into this.
Got it. I think I know why.
Like to keep my.
There you go.
Yeah, I like to keep my tech career separate from this until such time as I don't have to have a tech career.
I perfectly understandable considering the nature of tech. Let me ask you this, if I can, sir. Was there any particular point? Now, I know you served time in the military, in the Air Force. You worked in law enforcement. People that have those types of jobs, their nature tends to be a little bit more conservative. Was there a particular point in your life, Earl Jackson, when a light went on over your head and you distinctly realized, you know what? I'm a conservative. I identify more with Republicans than I do with Democrats, more with conservatism than with liberalism. Is there anything that made you think one day, okay, that's what I am. That's who I am?
I think growing up in the era that I did, I'm almost 50, and so I was alive and remember distinctly the experience of the gas shortage of the 70s.
Oh, yeah.
And I remember the prosperity boom that took place once Ronald Reagan became president. And I think it was in my early to mid-teens when it, I guess, crystallized in my head that there was such a difference between the Republicans and the Democrats, the conservatives and liberals. And I actually remember watching Rush Limbaugh's TV show when I was a teenager. So I think it's always been there, and as I've gotten older, it's just gotten more and more solidified in me. And I work with people who are stark raving liberals, and we get into discussions, and there's just there's no way that I could possibly align myself with the other side because it just doesn't make any sense on any level.
I've said this for a while, and I would submit it to you now. America needs you and me more than ever. We'll get into this a little bit later on.
I could not agree more.
Because there are some stories that I'd like to run by you and have your opinions on. We'll get to that probably after the bottom of the hour break.
Sure.
But before we do that, what makes Earl Jackson tick? Who would you say you are? You're a big supporter of the Second Amendment. I would assume the Bill of Rights. I would assume maybe I'm asking that question not quite so well. There are certain types of conservatives. There are government conservatives. There are social conservatives. There are fiscal conservatives. There are pro-military conservatives. Do you kind of align yourself more with any other area, or do all of those things feature into your world?
I am conservative. I am what some might call ultra-conservative.
Okay. When
it comes to the flag, I can't stand these pampered babies that are kneeling during the national anthem and disrespecting the flag. I love this country. This country has afforded me and everyone who comes here the greatest of opportunities of anywhere else in the world. I'm conservative. I'm a patriot, and that's the bottom line. That's where I stand. There was a time not that long ago when there were some social things that I was slightly more liberal on, but I came out of that with education, with reading, and thinking more deeply about some of those issues. And I guess we can talk about those after the break if that's what you want to do, unless you want to get into them now.
Let me ask you this before we go there. I want to get into more specific issues and areas after the break. How tough is it in general, Earl Jackson, to be a conservative these days in public? I'm going somewhere with this. Can we?
It really depends. Here in Texas, it's really not as difficult as I imagine it would be somewhere like Massachusetts or California or Chicago. So here in Texas, it's really not that difficult. But I can see, like in Austin, if I actually worked in Austin, which is the lone blue dot in the red state of Texas, it would probably be more difficult. But not so much here.
That leads me up to this question, because it's no shock. How tough is it in general to be a black conservative these days?
Well, that is a horse of a different color.
Yes, it is,
so to speak. It was more difficult when I lived in Massachusetts, for sure. You do get some funny looks when you show up at a NASCAR event and you have your heart have your hand over your heart when the national anthem is played and stuff like that. And you do get some funny looks when you're talking in public and you're supporting President Trump or you're talking about some conservative issues. You do get some funny looks like, you shouldn't be talking like that. I should be ready to debate you or worse. And it turns out that they're wrong in that assumption. So it's a little tougher to be a black conservative these days, even in Texas.
I have to admit, I have lost friends and acquaintances due to my support for President Trump, who admittedly, I'll be the first to say, he was not my initial choice. Ted Cruz was my guy.
Nor was mine.
At the time, I really liked Ted's stances on a lot of things. I think, Earl Jackson, you and I will both agree that Ted Cruz is one of the smartest guys around in a room. He made some mistakes. He wasn't the final guy, and I had to throw my hat in with Donald Trump because my choice was Hillary Clinton, and I voted for Donald Trump. If for no other reason than A, he wasn't Hillary Clinton, and B, I felt fairly certain that he was going to make some really good, cogent SCOTUS picks, and I was not disappointed at that. So as far as I'm concerned, Earl Jackson, after those two major bullet points, everything that Donald Trump has done for the country, to me, that's gravy. That's absolute gravy. But I have lost friends and I've lost acquaintances just over that. Have you?
I have lost friends that I've known since I was in junior high school.
Oh man!
Because and this was even before my support of President Trump. This was when I was very critical of President Obama, and I couldn't believe some of the things that were said to me and about my wife on social media because I didn't support President Obama and had a ton of critical things to say about him and his policies. And yeah, I've lost people that I thought were dear friends that our friendship would have transcended political differences, but apparently I was giving them too much credit. Because I have friends that I disagree with. I can disagree with anybody. We can talk, we can debate, and at the end of the day, we can agree to disagree. That's not always the case from the other side.
No, not at all. Folks, we're talking to Earl Jackson, great American, great conservative, Republican, as I clear my throat, friend of Sean Lewis, whom I wasn't made aware of, thank you, Sean, appreciate that, a whole bunch. When we come back, we now know a little bit about Earl Jackson, what makes him tick. Now, I want to find out when we come back, and I want to go through a number of issues and have Earl weigh in on them. These are issues burning with the temper of the times. I am the bloviating Zeppelin. You're listening to BZ. This is the Berserk Bobcat Saloon radio show. It is Thursday, June 20th, the year of our Lord, 2019. I will be right back after this.
Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
Hey, this is Michael Wright.
And I'm Shannon Wright.
Join us for The Right Way with Shannon and Mike, Monday through Thursday from 7 to 9 a.m. right here on SHR Media.
Why are they joining us?
For fun things like sports, politics.
Oh, maybe some news and entertainment?
And all kinds of other things.
Money and recipes and events, all kinds of stuff.
Yeah, so join us Monday through Thursday, 7 to 9 a.m. here on shrmedia.com.
From a public locker inside a dilapidated Long Island rail station comes a show designed to piss off liberals using truth, facts, and ridicule. The Lid Radio Show, featuring the conservative voice from the People's Republic of New York, the Lid himself, Jeff Dunitz. Tune in every Wednesday at 2 p.m. Eastern, 11 a.m. Pacific on the SHR Media Network. Go to shrmedia.com. At Lid Radio, we fight for the truth, justice, and a good kosher T-bone. If you don't listen, Hillary Clinton might sneak into your bedroom in her housecoat late at night and blame you for her election loss. It's the Lid Radio Show with Jeff Dunitz.
Hey girls, Carry Girl Gear is here. More and more women every day are concealed carrying, participating in competitive shooting, and getting firearms training. It's not a boys club anymore, and we don't have to shop in their stores anymore either. Finally, a cool and unique clothing line just for women. Dope tees and hats for the patriotic concealed carry and 2A girl. So what are you waiting for? Go check out carrygirlgear.com today.
It's your business diva here, Melanie Collette. I am inviting you to a front row seat as I discuss some of the most intriguing details of wealth and finance with today's movers and shakers in the world of business. Listen in and discover financial truths on a global, domestic, and household scale. Uncover topics that will impact your wallet today and in the future. Money Talk with Melanie airs Monday through Friday, 5 p.m. East, 2 p.m. West, right here on SHR Media and High Plains Pundit Talk Radio. You can't afford to miss it.
The new show on the SHR Media Network, Sackheads Against Tyranny. On shrmedia.com. Go there quick like a bunny, 11 p.m. Eastern, 8 p.m. Pacific, every Wednesday. Live and direct on the SHR Media Network. shrmedia.com. Be there.
For 50 years, I've seen the American people blinded by corrupt politicians, a lapdog media, and deceptive Islam. The one thing the elites fear is one man with a cane. I'm Dave Milner. Join me through Spreaker, iTunes, and SoundCloud, through SHR Media and the Western Free Radio Network, for half a century of experienced perspective on political and social issues, weekly on The Unpleasant Blind Guy. And catch me on Jeff Mitchell's EDL Radio on blogtalkradio.com. There's
no surrender, ever.
Because truth is not always pleasant.
Broadcasting behind enemy lines in occupied California, a mere 2 miles from the state capital, the bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk Bobcat Saloon radio show can be heard every Tuesday and Thursday night at 8 p.m. Pacific and 11 p.m. Eastern, only on the SHR Media Network. Go to shrmedia.com to listen. You can also watch on the SHR Media Facebook page and the SHR Media YouTube channel. No goldfish were abused in the making of this ad. Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, you're listening to the bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk Bobcat Saloon radio show. Live and direct from the SHR Media Studios, 2 miles east of the Bill Mill in downtown Sacramento, California. Here, that's always spelled with a K. But as I have worked, yeah, Earl knows the truth of that. As I have worked in law enforcement for 41 years, I retired in 2116, that's over 100 years from now. I retired in 2016 with 41 years, and Earl worked in law enforcement. I want to give everybody a slight tribute to this. We lost a police officer in Sacramento, California, last night. She was 26-year-old Tara O'Sullivan, and she was killed in response to a domestic violence call. She was shot with a rifle. There was a standoff for about 8 hours. Unfortunately, she was left after being shot, and it took law enforcement guesstimated about 40 to 55 minutes to be able to retrieve her. Sacramento Police Department got the suspect. He gave up, but we also lost another female police officer early this year from the city of Davis, California. And that department is, maybe 20 miles west of Sacramento. So in my area here, we've lost 2 female police officers in, I'd say 6 months or so. The sad thing about Tara O'Sullivan is she worked for 2 years for Sac PD. She worked, I believe, over a year as a CSO, which is a community services officer, and that's not a sworn position. She just got picked up full-time by Sac PD as an officer. And in this instance from yesterday, she was still in training, still a trainee, and didn't even make it out of training.
Very sad.
Our flags are at half-mast right now. Sac PD has had some issues recently. I'm going to play a cut in the second hour about how they were received when Sac PD was trying to hold a line and keep people out of the crime scene at the time. Just want to do a little honor to her before we move on to some of the other topics that we have. Earl Jackson, there's a movement going on these days called Walk Away that was started by Brandon Straka. I've had him on my show 4 times. Great guy. What he recommends people do, of all paint jobs, stripes, nationalities, is go and make their own video about why it is that they decided that they were going to walk away. I want to play this for you. This is about 2 minutes of a very young black gentleman. And I say young because we automatically assume that this is the kind of guy that's going to go for the Democrats. And I want folks to hear, no, he's not, and this is why.
Everybody, Benji Irby here. I ran into Brandon Straka yesterday, and he asked me whether I'd ever done a walkaway video. And I thought about it, and I was like, no, I actually haven't. So I'm going to give you guys my walkaway story. It starts back in the early 2016. I found myself homeless. I had to give up my apartment, and I was living in my car. During that time, I met this guy, and we had begun to date. He was a little younger than me. He was doing really well for himself, had a really nice apartment, dog. He was, really just doing it here in the city. And as we, went on to date and went on and got closer, I eventually ended up moving in with him. Shortly after I moved in with him, he confided in me that he was an illegal immigrant from Mexico, and that him and his family had come over the border when he was 5. And that he had, they lived in Northern California. They were, doing, fruit picking and things like that, like agricultural work. And he was even telling me about how his brother had been deported, and they brought him back 3 times. They raised the money to bring him back. And he would just tell me different stories about how the law enforcement in California going with, illegal immigrants and things like that was just very lax.
To say it minimally, the point of that being is that, and this is where I would like you to weigh in and let me know, Earl Jackson, if I'm going way astray by suggesting this. It seems to me now that the once monolithic voting bloc that was the American Democrat black male and female is now not quite so monolithic. And is that coincidental, Earl Jackson, that the Democrats seem to be kicking the American blacks to the curb, and they've decided that, well, you are not reliable anymore. You're not as monolithic as we thought. You made a really great tool for a while in terms of elections, but now our thoughts and progress is with the Mexicans, Hispanics, almost anyone else. Certainly it's not going to be with the Caucasoids. They can go to hell. And you guys aren't reliable anymore. And so that's why, Earl Jackson, is this anything close to sanity where we have leftist Democrats and the American media maggots saying, essentially, don't care about the laws, don't care about the federal laws that we've written. We essentially we require and demand open borders, essentially, so that we can be reelected in perpetuity and no one can stand against us. Or am I just crazy?
Well, I'm not so sure that the black vote is not as monolithic as it once was. I'm going to wait till this next election before I make that claim.
Okay.
We did see some breaks in the dam, I guess, in 2016, but we'll see what happens in 2020. But
so you say you don't think the numbers are there?
I'm not sure.
Okay.
I know that more black men voted for President Trump than in past elections where they voted for Democrats as opposed to the Republican candidate. I'm not sure if it's enough, but like I said, we'll see what happens in 2020. But the Democrats are most definitely doing their level best to import as many votes as they possibly can. And like you said, they are disregarding every law. They're giving illegal immigrants driver's licenses, and you know that those are going to be used to vote in upcoming elections illegally. So I mean, yes, they are importing votes, and that's why they want open borders. And it's astounding to me how quickly the script flipped, because it wasn't that long ago that guys like Chuck Schumer and even Nancy Pelosi and Dianne Feinstein sounded a lot like Donald Trump when it came to illegal immigration.
Yes, they did.
But now, because it's Donald Trump, and because they see that there might be a possibility of them losing a monolithic block of voters like the black vote, that they have to come up with a contingency plan. And that contingency plan is to open the borders, let everyone in, and let the American people be damned, because they're getting in the way of our power.
I found a very interesting comment in chat that just occurred. Simone in chat says, open borders, open caskets. You're a Second Amendment kind of guy. I'm sure that you've heard, Earl Jackson, people on the left, leftist Democrats, the American media maggots, as I call them, say something so simple as, if we were to ban, wouldn't it be worth it to remove all firearms if just one life could be saved? Well, couldn't we also say that about illegals? If we could just close the borders to do that, and if only one life could be saved, wouldn't it be worth it? Well, they think it's worth it for firearms. Wouldn't it be worth it for the borders as well? And they don't see the conflict in that. Now, I don't know if this is happening in Texas, but I can tell you for certain that it's happening on the left coast and in California and in Sacramento, for that matter. One of the first concerns that I had when I heard that officer was shot was there hesitation in whatever situation she or her training officer encountered? Was there any hesitation that occurred in that scenario? I do not know, but that's one of the first things that occurred to me. I've watched Berkeley PD officers stand down when a block away there was violence occurring because their chiefs and the UCD Berkeley chief told their contingent to stand down and stand back. You're a great supporter of the Second Amendment at the same time when we're finding law enforcement officers who do this kind of thing, who disgust me and dishonor their badge. Simultaneously, there is a massive push to, I think, all the leftists would be happy to completely disarm America. And then who supports us? Who defends us? That's why I'm a massive supporter of the Second Amendment. Without the second, there is no first. And we are in danger of losing both.
We 100% agree with you. The fact that there was even a thought that she might have hesitated is a sad statement on where we are today.
It's
because
yes.
Yeah, I mean, it's just, and going back to the comment about the open borders, open caskets, I mean, that could be taken any number of ways. And the way that I would like to take it is if any of these open borders, illegal aliens were to come on my property, they would be the ones in the casket. But guys like Eric Swalwell and people like Kamala Harris and the entire Democrat field, to be honest, had their way, it would be people like you and I in the casket in that situation.
Well, first you and I would be in prison.
And they wouldn't shed a tear.
No, absolutely not. Absolutely guaranteed not. Here's a story from CNN, just came out. Let's see, June 17th. Hey, Monday. New York passes a bill, which means California's next, folks. New York passes a bill to allow driver's licenses for undocumented immigrants. Well, when you have a driver's license, what does that do? That mainstreams you.
Absolutely.
That's where we're going.
You're going to present that at the voting booth.
Yes. We already have the motor voter law in California. Let me ask you this, another question, Earl Jackson. It's said that Trump lost the popular vote by about 2 million votes. I suggested back in 2016, you already know where I'm going on this, don't you? I suggested back in 2016, those 2 million votes, I would submit possibly 50% of them could have come from California itself. And in terms of illegal votes, people who are either voting doubly or are voting illegally, or in terms of voter fraud, and another million people all across the nation, to which on that theory I've been poo-pooed numerous times. But I submit that is
fraud doesn't exist.
Oh, right. Good point, Earl Jackson.
It just doesn't happen. In fact, Barack Obama said so.
Well, you make an excellent point, sir, and thank you for for pointing that out. Then there was this, and I also, Earl Jackson, would like your input on this, and I would like you to opine. It would appear that AOC, otherwise I call her OAC upon approved credit, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez said the U.S. is running concentration camps on our southern border. Were you a little upset, as perhaps I was? Well, first, tell you what. Let's listen. This isn't just me suggesting that. Here's AOC specifically stating that.
The United States is running concentration camps on our southern border. And that is exactly what they are. They are concentration camps. And if that doesn't bother you, we can have, okay, whatever. I want to talk to the people that are concerned enough with humanity to say that we should not, that never again means something. And that...
I have to stop right here because that kind of insanity can't be allowed to continue.
Well, here's the thing. She is so woefully out of her depth, and she can't put a coherent sentence together, and yet there was still so much to unpack in that little clip. I mean, concentration camps. People don't try to get into concentration camps, first of all.
No.
And then she says never again, which is something that is completely associated with the Holocaust.
The Holocaust.
And then she tried to say that that's not what she was saying. Well, of course you are.
Of course
idiot.
that was her clear and level intention aimed at individuals that have no damned idea about history. That's what it is, as you point out, it's Democrats mocking the Holocaust. Just like you suggested, I'm sure that a ton of European Jews in the 30s and 40s weren't actively walking in caravans toward concentration camps. She must have missed that part in school where they were taught about, video games and cheeseburgers and pool tables and yoga classes. I'm sure those things were carried on in yoga class or in Nazi camps as well. And
not only is she historically wrong, but what she said defies logic. I mean, go ahead.
It's so...
No, what I was going to...
I'm sorry. Go ahead, Earl Jackson. Go ahead.
Well, I mean, like we said, people are trying to get into this country. People are not going to try to get into a place where they are going to be starved, beaten, and suffer in terrible accommodations. They're just not going to do it. They're coming here because they know that they're going to be treated well, they're going to be fed, and once they get out, because they know that there's only a certain amount of time they can be held, they'll be free to roam the country and, if they're enterprising enough, try and build a life for themselves. That's not what a concentration camp is about. And the fact that she actually said that without thinking it through is just another, it just highlights even more that she just has no clue about what she's doing.
Earl Jackson, doesn't this frighten you perhaps even more? We know what she is. We know what she said, and we have a pretty good idea what she's going to continue to say in the future. Moronic statements like this, completely dismissing the fact that 6 million Jews were killed. This apparently just not important in terms of history. The people on the border are much more important than 6 million Jews having been exterminated in concentration camps. That aside, does it not frighten you, sir, even more that there are people listening to this idiot bint? That there are people that are processing the information she's providing as having some kind of veracity, some aspect of truth to it, when it's all a massive lie. That scares me at night. That scares me that people are listening to her and piling on and climbing on. Well, yeah, she's okay.
Well, it does scare me because I don't follow her on Twitter. Actually, no, I did start following her yesterday. I follow her on Twitter. And some of those comments underneath that video that she posted, people were actually praising her and agreeing that was true. And yes, the fact that there are so many people, and I know Twitter is not reality, but it's still frightening that so many people would actually agree with. I mean, enough people voted for her that she got elected, so that's scary enough. It's frightening.
It is frightening. 2016 was
I would like to think that she's making such a buffoon of herself that in 2020 somebody will primary her, if not a Republican runs and beats her, because she is just so. It defies description almost.
It does. It staggers the imagination. It's beyond human ken that you could have someone so completely illiterate, abusive of history, as to make such a ridiculous statement as that. I had him on my show.
And then double down on it.
Yes. And then say, oh, well, it really is applicable. Oh, my God. Are you kidding me? But yes,
no, she's not kidding.
She has an audience and people are listening to her. I was hoping he was going to do it. I haven't heard any further. When I had Brandon Strock on the show, I don't know, April, May, I had him on the show last time. He let fly that he was possibly going to get in the race in New York, that's where he lives, and run against AOC. I haven't seen any more information about that, but I think he might actually give her a little bit of a run for her money. We got about 3 more minutes.
Well,
I'm sorry, sir. Go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, I mean, a bartender won. So Brandon Straka has infinitely more brain cells than she does, and I'm fairly certain he could run a campaign that could defeat her. The only obstacle I see is possibly money.
Yeah,
but I would love to see him get in that race and get her out of there, because it's frightening.
Iggy Mom in chat says that AOC is pulling under 13% favorability in her district now, because she apparently couldn't care less about her district. She's looking at bigger views now. We got about 2 minutes left now before the top of the hour, and I want to ask you a final question. 2016 was a critical election. Do you think 2020 is going to be even more critical? And if you had to hypothesize, Earl Jackson, what do you think the 2020 results might be?
Yes, 2020 is even more critical than 2016 was. And based on what I'm seeing now, I think it's going to be close. It depends on who the Democrats nominate. If they nominate somebody like Biden, then it's almost a foregone conclusion that Trump will win re-election.
Okay.
If they nominate somebody like Kamala Harris or even Buttigieg, which I know is a long shot, but I think he has the tools to be able to give President Trump a run, then it could get dicey. But I'm firmly in the camp that I believe that President Trump will win re-election.
Okay, so if they run a leftist against Trump, that individual may be more appealing than Joe Biden. I'm looking at Drudge Report and things like that. Biden is kind of having some air getting let out of his campaign these days, as a matter of fact.
He is.
He
is, and he's making some mistakes, and I think that is is going to hurt them. And then we haven't even got to the debates yet. So we'll see what happens there.
Oh, no, that's very true. Earl Jackson, we've come to the end. So please, again, please tell listeners once again where they can find you on social media, your websites, and how and or where can they listen to your show, The Liberty Cast.
Okay, my website is thelibertycast.net. That's where you'll find everything that I write, and you'll find a link to the podcast on thelibertycast.net. You can find the podcast on any of the platforms, Spreaker, Spotify, SoundCloud, iTunes. And before I go, I just want to mention that you ran a commercial for Carry Girl earlier.
Yes.
And I just want to let everyone know that that is my wife's business.
Is it really?
Yes.
Okay, there's another thing I have to talk to Sean about. Thanks, Sean. But more importantly, thank you, Earl Jackson, for being here tonight. Thanks for staying up late. Not like, midnight late, but it's still pretty darn late. Thanks for being a guest on the show, and I got to ask you again, would you ever consider... Now, the first appearance on the show is sort of, me getting in the listeners getting to know you a little bit. I'd love to have you back to weigh in on more precise and incisive topics of the day. So would you ever consider coming back again as a guest, Earl Jackson?
Oh, absolutely. It would be my pleasure.
Thank you very much. Because I said it at the beginning of the hour, and I'll say it again. Earl Jackson, America needs us, people like you and me, more than ever.
Absolutely. Could not agree more.
Thank you ever so kindly, sir. Folks, that was Earl Jackson, and I'll have him back on the show. We're going to take a break, come back. I'm going to do some happy stories. I've got some really intriguing audio cuts. And then also when I get back, we're going to open up the phone lines because I'd like to hear what you guys happen to think about the various topics that I'm going to go over. And also, I have a little bit of information with regard to Iran that I might share with you when we come back. I'm BZ. This is the Berserk Bobcat Saloon radio show.
Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
Hey, this is Michael Wright.
And I'm Shannon Wright.
Join us for The Right Way with Shannon and Mike, Monday through Thursday from 7 to 9 a.m. right here on SHR Media.
Why are they joining us?
For fun things like sports, politics.
Oh, maybe some news and entertainment?
And all kinds of other things.
Money and recipes and events, all kinds of stuff.
Yeah, so join us Monday through Thursday, 7 to 9 a.m. here on shrmedia.com.
From a public locker inside a dilapidated Long Island rail station comes a show designed to piss off liberals using truth, facts, and ridicule. The Lid Radio Show, featuring the conservative voice from the People's Republic of New York, the Lid himself, Jeff Dunitz. Tune in every Wednesday at 2 p.m. Eastern, 11 a.m. Pacific on the SHR Media Network. Go to shrmedia.com. At Lid Radio, we fight for the truth, justice, and a good kosher T-bone. If you don't listen, Hillary Clinton might sneak into your bedroom in her housecoat late at night and blame you for her election loss. It's the Lid Radio Show with Jeff Dunitz.
Hey girls, Carry Girl Gear is here. More and more women every day are concealed carrying, participating in competitive shooting, and getting firearms training. It's not a boys' club anymore, and we don't have to shop in their stores anymore either. Finally, a cool and unique clothing line just for women. Dope tees and hats for the patriotic concealed carry and 2A girl. So what are you waiting for? Go check out carrygirlgear.com today.
It's your business diva here, Melanie Collette. I am inviting you to a front row seat as I discuss some of the most intriguing details of wealth and finance with today's movers and shakers in the world of business. Listen in and discover financial truths on a global, domestic, and household scale. Uncover topics that will impact your wallet today and in the future. Money Talk with Melanie airs Monday through Friday, 5 p.m. East, 2 p.m. West, right here on SHR Media and High Plains Pundit Talk Radio. You can't afford to miss it.
The new show on the SHR Media Network, Sackheads Against Tyranny. On shrmedia.com. Go there quick like a bunny, 11 p.m. Eastern, 8 p.m. Pacific, every Wednesday. Live and direct on the SHR Media Network. shrmedia.com. Be there.
For 50 years, I've seen the American people blinded by corrupt politicians, a lapdog media, and deceptive Islam. The one thing the elites fear is one man with a cane. I'm Dave Milner. Join me through Spreaker, iTunes, and SoundCloud, through SHR Media and the Western Free Radio Network, for half a century of experienced perspective on political and social issues, weekly on The Unpleasant Blind Guy. And catch me on Jeff Mitchell's EDL Radio on blogtalkradio.com. There's
no surrender, ever.
Because truth is not always pleasant.
Broadcasting behind enemy lines in occupied California, a mere 2 miles from the state capitol, the bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk Bobcat Saloon radio show can be heard every Tuesday and Thursday night at 8 p.m. Pacific and 11 p.m. Eastern, only on the SHR Media Network. Go to shrmedia.com to listen. You can also watch on the SHR Media Facebook page and the SHR Media YouTube channel. No goldfish were abused in the making of this ad. Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, thank you ever so kindly for listening to the bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk Bobcat Saloon radio show tonight. As was indicated, live and direct from the SHR Media Studios, where I am broadcasting behind enemy lines in occupied California. The first hour we had Earl Jackson. Apparently he knew a few things that I didn't, such as it would have been interesting had Sean told me that he knew Earl Jackson. That was new to me, thanks Sean. And also the ad that we have for Carrie Girl, it would have been nice to know, because I could have said something to Earl about that, hey, that's his wife's business that we're talking about. But that's okay. Sean and I may, air quotes, may have a convo about this a little bit later. I think you can probably rest assured because of that. When I told you that I had some happy stories, I do. I most definitely do. But as occurs in the week, I want to play the Ron Edwards Notebook. Here's Ron Edwards.
It seems as if straight people have become an oppressed majority. Hello, I'm Ron Edwards. On today's page from the Edwards Notebook, God made both male and female. He then ordained that men and women are to marry and raise strong families and teach their children the way that they should go. The result of doing so is a strong nation. As my dad often told me when I was growing up in Cleveland, that a nation is only as strong as her families. It is any wonder why the month of June, once known as the wedding month, and celebrating Father's Day, has in many circles become a prideful month of celebrating an unnatural lifestyle whose proponents have bullied marriage between man and a woman into such a much less prominent position in society. And don't get me started on the war against fatherhood. The leftist attack against the family and fatherhood is part of a massive effort to destroy the Judeo-Christian and constitutional underpinnings of our blessed republic. We must no longer sit idly by like a scared, oppressed majority and push back against the darkness. After all, the republic we save may be our own. I'm Ron Edwards. Let's meet Fridays at 4 p.m. Eastern, 2 p.m. Central, 1 p.m. Pacific on AmericaMatters.us, and 12 a.m. Sundays on Talk America Radio Network.
Ron Edwards, the new voice of America.
Thanks, Ron. You know what I think? I think it's time.
It's time for happy stories and good times.
Here's one that just came out today. And this is great. This is from nationalreview.com. The Supreme Court today rules that a 40-foot peace cross can remain on state property in Maryland. And you can be guaranteed that atheists the nation over are throwing multiple camshafts and poop in the proverbial punch bowl. The Supreme Court ruled Thursday, today, that a 40-foot peace cross commemorating the men from a suburban Maryland town who died in World War I can remain on state property. This is what I find interesting and would not have occurred under a Hillary Clinton administration. Writing as a 7-2 majority in the Supreme Court, Justice Samuel Alito held the cross didn't violate the Constitution's Establishment Clause, as was alleged by the plaintiffs, a group of humanists who argued the war monument represented a state endorsement of Christianity. This is a quote. The religious clauses of the Constitution aim to foster a society in which people of all beliefs can live together harmoniously, and the presence of the Bladensburg Cross on the land where it has stood for so many years is fully consistent with that aim, Alito wrote. The cross is undoubtedly a Christian symbol, but that fact should not blind us to everything else that the Bladensburg Cross has come to represent. For all those reasons, the cross does not offend the Constitution. It would not shock you, if I hope you are sitting down when I tell you this, it would not shock you that leftist judges Ruth Bader Ginsburg and Sonia Sotomayor dissented, while conservatives Neil Gorsuch and Clarence Thomas jointly concurred, and Brett Kavanaugh happened to write his own concurrence on that as well. There was a kerfuffle last week, or the week before, by the way, with regard to, say, an LGBT issue. And the information that you were provided was only half the truth. Do you recall when President Trump issued an order that there was not going to be an LGBT flag flying on various American embassies all across the planet? And Vice President Pence defended that, barring those flags on U.S. Embassy flagpoles. And essentially what he said was this. Can we get you? No, we're going to get an ad. What he said was this, and I absolutely concur. And how about you? He said, one American flag flies across and above the American embassies. And there is only room for one flag, the American flag. And that was, let's see, I think that was for LGBTQ, et cetera, Pride Month. And he concurred with President Trump, saying that it's the right decision. And I completely concur. There's room for one flag over our embassies. That's the American flag. Period. End of statement. Now, I find this very, very interesting. We spoke to Earl Jackson the first hour, and he was saying that it was not a foregone conclusion that President Trump is going to be reelected in 2020. Some of the demographics may have changed, perhaps they may have not. I find, however, this story coming out actually it came out yesterday, from trendingpolitics.com. Now, when I tell you the person making this statement, you might be a little bit gobsmacked. And again, as per normal, I hope you're sitting down when I tell you this. The headline is, Michael Moore gives Democrats a dire warning for 2020 after watching the Trump rally. Anti-Trump filmmaker Michael Moore gave the Democrat Party a dire warning after watching President Donald Trump's re-election campaign kickoff on Tuesday night in Orlando, Florida. He said, quote, I watched the whole thing last night, And he did so, he said that in a tweet with an attached clip of it. He said, "I know no one wants to waste that kind of time even looking at him," that is to say Trump, "but not wanting to see the enormity of the fight ahead doesn't make it go away," he continued. "He hasn't lost 1 inch of his fired up insane base. Are you ready?" I find that very interesting out of the mouth of Michael Moore. Now, if you go back and you remember, Michael Moore happened to be one of the few Democrats who correctly predicted, and this may have escaped you, he was in I love to play that audio cut of all the people going, "Oh my God, it's Trump is getting." Michael Moore was one of the few Democrats who actually correctly predicted in 2016 that it was going to be Donald Trump who was going to get to be president. So that Michael Moore said that in 2016, and he's saying these words now that unless the Democrats are careful, they must be much more careful than they are and a lot more circumspect, they could possibly see a replay of 2016 in 2020. Interesting coming from Michael Moore. Here's another happy story. This is from the Washington Examiner. The EPA cuts, let's see, when is this from? June 11th. The EPA cuts 40 regulations and saves $3.6 billion and seeks a balance on costs. And of course, the leftists were pooping themselves, aiming to erase the fuzzy math past administrations used to hide the costs of politically favored policies. The EPA, Environmental Protection Agency, is pulling back the curtain on costs and benefits and planning to kill regulations that are out of whack. Quote, "It hopefully will take away some of the fuzzy math that administrations have done in the past on justifying regulations," said EPA Administrator Andrew Wheeler of his new policy. And he added, "It's going to set a new bottom line for all regulations in the rules-heavy agency. If the costs are too high, we should change the regulatory approach. We shouldn't be having regulations that will cost more than the benefits they provide." An amazing thing, an astounding thing. He says, if the costs are too high, we should change the regulatory approach. We shouldn't, this is important, we shouldn't be having regulations that cost more than the benefits that they provide. Mike John Pasqua, how are you doing? What do you have to say, sir?
Oh, I'm doing fine, BZ. I enjoyed that interview with your previous guest. And if I were you, I would let Sean have it for not cluing you into those two little facts about your previous guest.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. I'm a little disappointed.
Go ahead.
I'm a little disappointed. I was just about 110% certain that he knew that I was. Well, listen, my promos for the show, especially today, I started promoting Earl Jackson about 2 or 3 days ago, especially since we had no Shot Show last night. Oh, let me stop right here just for a second. Clint couldn't be here last night for the Shot Show. That came at the very last second. So I want to let everybody know that next Wednesday, he has already planned to be away. So just to let you know, there will be no Shot Show next Wednesday. However, I should state this. Jack Alexander and I are currently in negotiations with his appearance on the show next Tuesday. I've gotten him to drop his contract from $74,000 to $12,740.95. If I could just eliminate that 95 cents, I think I could afford him and get him on the show. The one point of contention that we have not yet fixed is he wants no brown M&Ms in the candy jar in the green room. So that's something that we still have to hammer out, but I want to let folks know there's a really good possibility that Jack Alexander could be here in the Saloon next Tuesday night. Next Wednesday night, there will be no Shot Show. I myself, in person, will be live and direct next Thursday night as well. So anything else, Mike Pasqua? Thanks for being in chat again tonight, I should say.
Yeah, there is one other thing. You mentioned the advice that Michael Moore had just given to the Democratic Party.
Uh-huh.
The problem with that advice, I don't think they're capable of taking that advice.
I don't think I would disagree on that. I don't think I would disagree with you at all. They seem to be in a race to go as...
This advice is coming from somebody on their side. And generally when somebody on your side give you advice like that, you generally take that advice. I mean, you would, I would, Sean would, the nose would. So, yeah. I mean, but then again, we're talking Democrats have less brain matter to understand where good advice is coming from.
I would tend to agree completely with that. They're in a foot race to go as far left as they possibly can, as rapidly as they can. And even old slow Joe Biden, even Uncle Joe, was forced, kicking and screaming, to get on that train to go as far left as possible. It's a purity test. You have to be wacky on abortion, wacky on immigration, etc. I'm not convinced it's going to play well in 2020. One final thing, Michael John Pasqua. Do you think that Trump will win 2020? Is that possible?
I think Trump's going to win 2020 and win it big, and I think the House is going to flip.
Oh, okay. All right. Okay, we've got a second caller, so I'll tell you what. Hang on, second caller. Mike, thank you for calling. Greatly appreciate it. And second caller, are you there on the show, sir or ma'am?
Yes, Mr. BZ. This is Agent AK from the Department of Justice, Division of Lava Lamp Abuse.
Oh, again, I thought I had fixed the problem. Apparently there is still an issue.
But I understand, and we don't have a lava lamp problem right now.
Okay.
But I did receive a distressed phone call from the Saloon security system.
Oh no!
Last night, yes, and Clyde said that he was very lonely.
Well,
and that he was all up and ready for a chat show with you and Clint, and then you didn't show up, and he got worried, and he started calling around for us to look for you to find out if you guys were okay. So what Clyde has suggested is that maybe when Clint pulls his disappearing act on the chat show on Wednesday nights,
yes,
that maybe, just maybe, you should show up anyway, because Clyde has told me that you have a stack full of happy stories that you have not been able to get to because you take phone calls like this that take away from your happy stories.
Well,
and that Wednesday would be an appropriate time for you to do the happy stories if Clint pulls out unexpectedly again.
Okay, I can either lie to you or I can tell you the truth. The truth is this. You don't want me to lie to you. The truth is this. I actually got into the Kraut car and I drove up. I was right in front of the studio. I hadn't even walked down the driveway yet, but I was right in front of the studio, about to get out of the Kraut car, when all of a sudden I got a phone call from Clint, and he notified me at that precise moment in time that he just couldn't make it and that we'd have to forego the chat show. So at least I didn't go inside the studio, set everything up, and then at 5 minutes till, he dropped a bomb on me and said, well, I'm just not going to be there. So at least I have to give props where props are due, that at least Clint decided to call me about 55 minutes before the show started. So at least I had that going for me.
Yes. Well, Clyde would have at least appreciated the fact that you should have at least walked in there and said, hey, Clyde, Clint's not showing, so we're not going to be here tonight. So he could have taken the rest of his evening off, laying there, just observing the lava lamp and being mellow. But as it was, he was up on duty for the whole show time, and nobody was there, and he was looking out the windows, making sure that none of those stinking Democrats were trying to get into the studio.
Well, thank you, WD, for that. I greatly appreciate it. He must have stepped out to go to the bathroom in the grass in the backyard back there, because we actually have a backyard. We actually have grass where he goes. He doesn't go in the studio. Thank God he's potty trained. We really appreciate that part. But I came into the studio last night. I had purchased a thin blue line flag from a company called Real Steel, and it's gorgeous. I'm going to take a photograph of it. I was up here last night putting that on the wall. It's about 2.5, 3 feet wide and about 1.5 or 2 feet tall. It's a beautiful torn American flag with the thin blue line running horizontally and then black through it. I don't get any amount of money for saying that, but I put it up. I purchased it, and it's absolutely beautiful. So now it's in the studio. I did not know at the time that the SAC PD officer had been killed. I knew that there was a SAC PD officer that was shot, but we were not aware that the officer had been killed yet. And it was very odd kind of congruency that I was placing a thin blue line American flag in the studio about the same time that a Sacramento Police Department officer was getting killed or had been killed. So that was just, for me, that was just really weird. Very sad. And like I said, that's the second officer that we've had killed in this area in about 6 months. And they've both been female. The sad thing, well, no, the officer, the female officer from the Davis Police Department, she hadn't been on the job all that terribly long. And then Tara O'Sullivan, the female officer who was killed last night from the Sacramento Police Department, she was still in training. She hadn't even gotten out of her training yet. She was still with an FTO, a field training officer, and didn't even make it that far. And there are a lot of stories going around. I'm not going to regale everyone with them right now. There are some things that are being discussed with local departments regarding that issue and a number of issues as to how we can conduct ourselves in the future regarding critical incidents like this. When more information comes out, I have definite opinions and thoughts about the matter. I'm not going to go into it right now. I am just going to say that, unfortunately, I think California may have played a part in this. And at this point, that's about all I'm going to say about the situation. And we probably won't have a lot more information yet in for a couple of months or so. But law enforcement in California is, let's just say, it's extremely challenged and leave it at that. And when I say extremely challenged, let me make a reference if I can. And thanks, WD, for indulging me on this rant right now. When I came to Sacramento County and took the test, I was coming from another agency. And I took the test in the Sacramento Community Center. There were 2 or 3 shifts of people taking the test on that one day in the Sacramento Community Center. That's a large building that can hold up to 1,000 people. There were at least 2, perhaps 3 shifts of 200 to 300 people taking the test, meaning that close to 1,000 or perhaps 1,000 people were taking the test that time. And it turns out for that specific academy, there were 22 slots available for the Sacramento Police Department and the Sacramento County Sheriff's Department. So I was one of 22 people out of close to 1,000 that were selected for the academy. That's how challenging law enforcement was back in the day. These days, the Sacramento Police Department is having a hell of a time trying to assemble an academy with, say, 30 or 40 people in it. The California Highway Patrol, which historically has always had very large academies, 200-300 people per academy, their last academy was challenged with about 90 or so people. that came through the academy. So it's challenging on a number of levels. Number one, the gene pool. In California, you're trying to find a number of people who will pass the background and have a sufficient quality of gene pool to be employed by law enforcement in the first place. The second part of that equation is California itself, and you have to ask yourself how many people these days really are going to want to work for a California law enforcement agency, even though the California Highway Patrol bills itself as the premier agency in the state of California. They're having a hell of a time trying to get recruits. Folks, it's time for the break. I'll be right back after this. I'm the Bloviating Zeppelin, and you're listening to BZ's Berserk Bobcat Saloon radio show, live and direct, shrmedia.com.
Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
Hey, this is Michael Wright.
And I'm Shannon Wright.
Join us for The Right Way with Shannon and Mike, Monday through Thursday from 7 to 9 a.m. right here on SHR Media.
Why are they joining us?
For fun things like sports, politics.
Oh, maybe some news and entertainment?
And all kinds of other things.
Money and recipes and events, all kinds of stuff.
Yeah, so join us Monday through Thursday, 7 to 9 a.m. here on shrmedia.com.
From a public locker inside a dilapidated Long Island rail station comes a show designed to piss off liberals using truth, facts, and ridicule. The Lid Radio Show, featuring the conservative voice from the People's Republic of New York, the Lid himself, Jeff Dunitz. Tune in every Wednesday at 2 p.m. Eastern, 11 a.m. Pacific on the SHR Media Network. Go to shrmedia.com. At Lid Radio, we fight for the truth, justice, and a good kosher T-bone. If you don't listen, Hillary Clinton might sneak into your bedroom in her housecoat late at night and blame you for her election loss. It's the Lid Radio Show with Jeff Dunitz.
Hey girls, Carry Girl Gear is here. More and more women every day are concealed carrying, participating in competitive shooting, and getting firearms training. It's not a boys' club anymore, and we don't have to shop in their stores anymore either. Finally, a cool and unique clothing line just for women. Dope tees and hats for the patriotic concealed carry and 2A girl. So what are you waiting for? Go check out carrygirlgear.com today.
It's your business diva here, Melanie Collette. I am inviting you to a front row seat as I discuss some of the most intriguing details of wealth and finance with today's movers and shakers in the world of business. Listen in and discover financial truths on a global, domestic, and household scale. Uncover topics that will impact your wallet today and in the future. Money Talk with Melanie airs Monday through Friday, 5 p.m. East, 2 p.m. West, right here on SHR Media and High Plains Pundit Talk Radio. You can't afford to miss it.
The new show on the SHR Media Network, Sackheads Against Tyranny. On shrmedia.com. Go there quick like a bunny, 11 p.m. Eastern, 8 p.m. Pacific, every Wednesday. Live and direct on the SHR Media Network. shrmedia.com. Be there.
For 50 years, I've seen the American people blinded by corrupt politicians, a lapdog media, and deceptive Islam. The one thing the elites fear is one man with a cane. I'm Dave Milner. Join me through Spreaker, iTunes, and SoundCloud, through SHR Media and the Western Free Radio Network, for half a century of experienced perspective on political and social issues, weekly on The Unpleasant Blind Guy. And catch me on Jeff Mitchell's EDL Radio on blogtalkradio.com. There's
no surrender, ever.
Because truth is not always pleasant.
Broadcasting behind enemy lines in occupied California, a mere 2 miles from the state capital, the bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk Bobcat Saloon radio show can be heard every Tuesday and Thursday night at 8 p.m. Pacific and 11 p.m. Eastern, only on the SHR Media Network. Go to shrmedia.com to listen. You can also watch on the SHR Media Facebook page and the SHR Media YouTube channel. No goldfish were abused in the making of this ad. Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, it's the final 25 minutes of the bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk Bobcat Saloon radio show in the sumptuous and palatial SHR Media Studios. Always go to shrmedia.com to be in the chat room. I don't monitor any other. We got some great people in chat who will welcome you with open arms. You can follow me on Twitter at BZEP, at BZEP. I simulcast on Big Sarge Media's Facebook page. Go there, like his page. And also on the SHR Media Facebook page, like our page. And the SHR Media YouTube channel. Subscribe to the channel. Hit notifications, and when the show is on, it'll bing, and it'll tell you when the fat, loquacious, and obsequious BZ is on the airwaves just for you. And we did a little bit of Debbie Downer just there for a second, but we're going to continue.
It's time for happy stories and good times.
This is a great story. I find this astounding. I wish I could show you the picture that goes with this article. This is from the Times of Israel. This is way cool. Technion team develops medical glue to replace stitches in serious injuries. Applied with a glue gun, the melted polymer works both externally and internally, is non-toxic, flexible, and biodegradable, researchers say. I was gobsmacked when I first read this article. Researchers at the Technion Israel Institute of Technology have developed a glue gun to put the human body back together when it's been seriously injured. The pins and stitches currently used to treat serious injuries come with drawbacks. They can be painful, they leave scars, they require high skill from the doctor, and they sometimes have to be removed after the tissues heal. Sutures on the intestine, lungs, or blood vessels often leak and therefore require a sealant. That's essentially what this is. The medical glue that the researchers have developed is a 2-in-1, said Professor Boaz Mizrahi, head of the Biomaterials Laboratory of Technion. It replaces both stitches and the sealant and is good for both external and internal injuries, he said. I'm almost at a lack for words. This is astounding. All sorts of medical glues are already being used in dermatology, surgery, and other areas. Israeli startup Nanomedic Technologies Limited, for example, they developed a medical device that it says can dress burns, in other words, and other wounds, I should say, with nanomaterials that mimic human tissue and peel off once the skin below is regenerated. That's what we should be using technology for. This is fabulous. Still, the glues currently in use to replace sutures and staples are limited by their mechanical properties and toxicity, the researchers said. Because they are very toxic, they can be utilized only on the surface of the skin. In addition, hardening of the glue may make the organ less flexible or the adhesion may not be sufficiently strong. So with those types of limitations in mind, the researchers they went on the hunt for a glue that is suitable for all sorts of different tissues, that is non-toxic, and that is flexible after it hardens. And a glue like that would also need to decompose in the body after the tissues are fused together. And they found it. And I find that absolutely astounding. Here's another good story. This is from Fox News. The headline goes like that. Senate Republicans enact procedural change to speed confirmation of Trump judicial picks, because even after this period of time, they're not getting through. So the Senate Republicans used a procedural maneuver on Wednesday to effectively prevent Democrats from using delaying tactics to stall votes on President Trump's nominees to federal district courts and the executive branch as the White House continues its push to transform the judiciary. Stop! This is exactly what leftists, Democrats would be doing, and they're carping about it. This is exactly what they would be doing and have done in the past, had they been sufficiently intelligent to enact this law. Pack and stack the courts. Historically, they've done it, and it's, oh, woe is me, all hands on deck when it gets done to them. Power. You have to be able to utilize power. The biggest problem that I have said over the years with the Republicans is when the Democrats get in, they know how to wield power very well. When the GOP gets in and has control of, let's say, the Oval Office, the House, and the Senate, they can't even coalesce to determine how they're going to get things done, which is extremely upsetting and disappointing about the Republicans. That having been said, do I think Trump has a chance in 2020? Actually, I do. I think Trump does have a pretty good chance in 2020. But it's so far away, you can't prognosticate. You can take polls, and I'll tell you about polls that happen to be positive with regard to Trump. I'll tell you about them just because they're there. But did we learn something from the polls in September and October and November in 2016? What lesson have we learned from that? I've learned a lesson. Here's another story. This is another happy story. Democrat staffers charged and jailed for doxing GOP senators. Well, first, for those of you who may not know, what is doxing? Doxing, D-O-X-X-I-N-G, is where someone reveals the information, personal information about, essentially, let's make no bones about it, an enemy. So as far as the Democrats are concerned, any person who's a conservative or a Republican deserves to be doxed. That is to say, have all their personal information as much as possible revealed, their address, their names, their phone numbers, as much information as possible so that people can go to their businesses, their places of work, their homes, call them on their personal phones and make their lives a living hell, just as was done to Sarah Huckabee Sanders and any number of people on the right-hand side during the Trump administration by people on the left. So Democrat staffers were charged and jailed for doxing GOP senators. Another one of Democrat Senator Maggie Hassan's former aides is facing charges in connection to a 2018 leak of GOP senators' personal information. On Wednesday, yesterday, former employee Samantha Davis was charged for allegedly tampering with evidence and abetting computer fraud. On that same day, her former co-worker, Jackson Costco, C-O-S-K-O, not the same, was sentenced to 4 years in prison. Oh, if I had applause right now as a sound effect, I'd be playing that. Well, I don't have a producer, but if I had a producer, maybe you would have heard 4 years in prison. But I don't have a producer, and that's not what you heard. That is a happy story in and of itself. But wait, this just came out today as well. This is a hell of a happy story. Aren't you glad you tuned in? Aren't you glad you're listening in podcast? Aren't you glad that you're a trucker driving all across the fruited plain? And again, thank you to America Truckers. You keep America moving. Thank you for listening in podcast, or if you're listening live, I hope that you have it on the speakers, but your eyes are on the road, okay? Your eyes are on the road. This is from Fox 11 in Los Angeles, and the headline is, Anger over rise in homelessness prompts bid to recall Los Angeles Mayor Eric Garcetti. Imagine that. A group of residents upset over the rise in homelessness in the city will formally begin a drive Wednesday to recall Los Angeles Mayor Eric Garcetti, an effort a mayoral spokesman called an unfortunate political stunt. Yeah, do you think they're pissed? I would be if I was living amidst filth and garbage. By the way, folks, were you aware that the city of The city of Los Angeles has no rodent plan in place, and the homelessness situation, feces, urine, garbage, has brought out rats, and rat-borne diseases are back, including typhus, given to several LAPD officers down in Southern California. And a representative for Garcetti says it's an unfortunate political stunt. Yeah, like diseases are a political stunt. And homelessness is a political stunt. And rats are a political stunt. Quote, the homeless situation is in a state of emergency and everything that we've done has not worked, said Alexandra Datig, the leader of the recall effort. At this point, I think we need an intervention and we need to recall this mayor. Absolutely. Datig, you might want to write this down. Datig created the website recallthelaMayor.com, all one word, recallthelaMayor.com, which posts news articles and broadcast clips from homelessness in Los Angeles and also outlines her reasons for why she believes Garcetti should be removed from office. Yeah. Oh, by the way, I came across this the other day. This is an audio cut. Now, if you thought that, when people, I don't know, people on the right, people like myself, say that, leftists are good at one thing. American media maggots are good at one thing. They're good at parroting talking points about leftists. So if there's nothing if there's nothing else you can say about leftist Democrats and the American media maggots all together in one unit is, at least they're on script. Here's a compilation that was assembled to show you precisely that. Listen up. I think you'll see hear some similarities.
Jessica Headley.
And I'm Ryan Wolf.
Our greatest responsibility is to serve our
Treasure Valley communities,
the El Paso, Las Cruces communities, Eastern Iowa communities,
Mid-Michigan communities.
We are extremely proud of the quality, balanced journalism that CBS 4 News produces.
Balanced.
But
we are concerned about the trouble and trend of irresponsible, one-sided news stories plaguing our country.
The sharing of biased and false news has become all too common on social media. More alarming, some media outlets publish these same fake stories without checking facts first.
The sharing of biased and false
news has become all too common on social media.
More alarming, some media outlets publish these same simply aren't true without checking facts first.
Unfortunately, some members of the media use their platforms to push their own personal bias and agenda to control exactly what people think. And this is extremely dangerous to our democracy.
this is extremely dangerous to our democracy.
This is extremely dangerous to our democracy.
Extremely dangerous to our democracy.
I wonder if it's extremely dangerous to our democracy. Any thoughts, anybody? Hands?
This is extremely
Dangerous to our democracy. This is extremely dangerous to our democracy. Dangerous.
extremely dangerous to our democracy.
Extremely
Dangerous to our democracy.
What if all isn't as it seems? What if the reality you found was false?
This is Cheryl Atkinson, Atkisson, who herself has been the subject of massive amounts of, stand by, fake news.
A carefully constructed narrative by unseen special interests designed to manipulate your opinion.
Third time I've said that. I'll probably say it 3 more times. See, in my line of work, you got to keep repeating things over and over and over again for the truth to sink in, to kind of catapult the propaganda.
Let's see. Stop here for a moment. Who else said that? I wish I had the tune for Jeopardy. Oh, that's right, Joseph Goebbels.
Well, I'm not going to leave you alone. I want you to get mad.
I don't want you to protest. I don't want you to riot. I don't want you to write to your congressmen because I wouldn't know what to tell you to write. I don't know what to do about
mad
the
as
depression
hell.
and the inflation and the Russians.
I'm
and
not
the
gonna
crime
take
in
it
the street.
anymore.
All I know is that first, you've got to get mad. You've got to say, I'm a human being. God damn it. My life has value.
And I wonder, are there talking points? I happen to think there are. I happen to think there are quite a number of talking points. I don't have enough time to go into Iran right now. I'll probably do that on Tuesday with Jack Alexander, because by then... Oh, let me tell you this. If you think that there's going to be a response by President Trump, my guess would be yes. If you think that a response may already be in place for this, ready for immediate application, my guess would be yes. There's an old phrase in politics, and it goes similar to this. Answer words with words and actions with actions. On the media front and on the world stage, I would suggest that that's about to be played out. Now, I was talking about Gil Garcetti and his recall, his potential recall. Here's a story, amazing, from the Los Angeles Times, a left-leaning newspaper that was just released in earlier this month in June by a guy named Steve Lopez. And the headline is, "Homelessness in L.A. is a catastrophe in motion." And this is what struck me. Then he writes, "And our leaders are largely to blame." Well, who are the leaders in Los Angeles? Oh, that's right, leftists and Democrats, aided and abetted by the American media maggots until maybe, just maybe, this Lopez guy, he may have been affected personally by something that the leftists in Los Angeles have done. And maybe he has said something similar to, I think it's gotten to the point where even I have to write something about this. And his story goes like this. Some of them are flat broke. Some are sick. Some work. Some have given up hope. They are homeless in Los Angeles, where mega mansions and shanty towns share the same zip code, and where the dark underbelly of a colossal social breakdown is on full display. In LA City and County, you taxed yourselves to do something about it, and last year alone, $619 million was poured into housing and services. But statistics released Tuesday show that the number of homeless in Los Angeles only grew, a 16% increase in the city and a 12% jump in the county, to a staggering total of nearly 60,000 people without homes. It's fair to wonder what happened. Finally, journalists with an inquisitive mind. That staggers the imagination to think that journalists are starting to ask questions. Yeah, things must be really bad when you've got Los Angeles Times journalists asking questions. It's fair to wonder what happened and how it's possible to spend all that money only to see the misery multiply and extend deeper into the West Side and the San Fernando and San Gabriel valleys. So the question appears to be, have you been ripped off? More than 20,000 people were brought indoors. So it's not like we got nothing for our investment, but tens of thousands more spilled into the streets or took up residence in vehicles, shelters, and parks. There's a myth that many of them have chosen that life. Some, no doubt, have given up. But to call homelessness a choice is to dismiss the complexities of human frailty. Stop. Now, if you're actually on the streets, as I was, and I listened to people interact, I still have many contacts in local law enforcement, and they still have people who say they would rather be on the streets, that this is a lifestyle that they've chosen, and that, by the way, the county of Sacramento, and specifically the state of California, it pays really well. And so that's why they're here. More common on the streets are tangled narratives of trauma, abuse, loss, physical and mental illness. Yes, absolutely. Loneliness, yes. Addiction and paralyzing poverty. Stop. Addiction is a huge issue in terms of homelessness, aided and abetted by government officials. I'll get to that possibly at another time in another story. Yeah, and of course, many of them peddle drugs, steal, and they prey on each other to survive. Oh, and by the way, if you haven't heard already, there are homeless gangs in California with a K. So if you think that the Bloods and the Crips and MS-13 are the only gangs across the nation, no. Now you have homeless gangs in California. Can't speak for any other state. Just talking about California. Mr. Lopez continues. What we're looking at now is what happens when city and county officials focus on a festering problem too late, move too slowly, and preside over an evolving catastrophe that may get worse before it gets better, even with thousands more housing units in the pipeline. The new numbers, which stand as an indictment of the official response, Mayor Garcetti, show a 24% increase in the number of homeless young people and a 7% increase among seniors. They underline a direct correlation with the crippling shortage of affordable housing, a massive issue in the state of California. Several legislative attempts to address the shortage have failed, partly because they involve more density and threaten the status quo for those who live comfortably in single-family homes. You might have expected Governor Newsom, who made housing a centerpiece of his campaign, to step in, but instead he was a ghost. Hey, anybody remember when Governor Newsom during this crisis decided that he was going to ghost himself down to Mexico so that he could more with illegals? Because he cares more about illegals than he does you taxpayers in the state of California. Imagine that. LA Mayor Eric Garcetti's plan for temporary shelters in every neighborhood has been met with neighborhood pushback, and it hasn't helped that projected costs for these facilities have soared beyond original estimates. Does the high-speed train to nowhere, does that resonate with anybody? Can you trust the state of California to wisely spend your money? Hell, can you trust the state you live in to wisely spend your taxpayer dollars? Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, thanks for listening to the Bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk Bobcat Saloon radio show, live and direct right here on the SHR Media Network. You want to contact me? You can find me on Twitter at bzep, my blog at bloviatingzeppelin.net. Thanks to Big Sarge Media for simulcasting my show and every night like tonight. Promotional consideration is by the Lockheed Martin Skunk Works, the Boeing company. Still trust them. If it ain't Boeing, I ain't going. And also Pratt & Whitney engines. Thrust. You can trust. Tiaras are by My Little Pony. Thanks to my personal KC-135 Kettle One refueling team with whom I will be consorting in less than an hour. Take that to the bank. Thanks to my guest in the first hour, Earl Jackson. Thanks to Sean Lewis for keeping me upright and keeping me informed about Earl Jackson. Thanks to you for being in chat. Thanks to everybody for listening live. Thanks to everybody listening in podcast. I want to tell you, have a great weekend. God bless. Take care. Be safe. See you next Tuesday night. Have a wonderful, wonderful, blessed weekend.
Everybody quiet down now and get some sleep.
Night, everybody.
Good night, Mama. Night, Ben.
Good night, everyone. Good night, Mama. Good night, Daddy.
Good night, children. Good night, Daddy. Good night, Elizabeth.
Good night, John Boy. Good night, Jim Bob. Good night, Jim Bob.
Good night, Jim Bob.
What's going on? I was asleep. What's everybody doing?
Good night.
Good night, Jim Bob.
Good night, and good luck.